So I think yes. So you can use the microphone or not, Judith. I know you've got. Right. Oh, a bit louder, Margaret, will you? So just click that on. Let me just get this.
My God. I don't know whether it'll stay on there. I'll probably lose it somewhere and you won't find it again. It hasn't. It's gone off now, hasn't it? That's all right. There we go. Right, it's a little clip thing. You just go like sideways.
Hello?
Oh.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. Bless you all. I'm going to read this morning from Psalm 139, and it's the word of the Lord to us. Praise God. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me. If only you, God, would slay the wicked. If only you, God, would slay the wicked away from me, you who are bloodthirsty. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offense in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Praise God.
Hi. It's been lovely this morning, hasn't it? Really lovely. And I think last week too was something so very genuine and real. And you know, I sense from the prayers that we've had this morning that everybody's well in tune with anything that I'm going to share today, or ahead of us. Psalm 139. Well, it's a very well-known psalm, isn't it? And it's a well-liked psalm. And I think it's one that we can relate to, and we can feel something of what David was saying, and we can take it and, as it were, say how we may be feeling as well by choosing those words. And it's a very good reason, I think, that we find that psalm the way, because it speaks of what's been said as being the pervasive presence of God and his intimate knowledge of us. David says in it that threats come before him and he pleads for God's action. He rests entirely with God, who knows him, with whom he has a relationship. There's a verb yada in it apparently, which means to know, and that occurs 7 times in the poem, repeatedly reinforcing the I, you, I, thou relationship between him, the psalmist, and God. And that's an underlined thread of that. Week before last, I think, I was reminded again, I think, of how fallible we are as human beings. And a few things in sort of meditation really, just to sort of share, is just how important it is. And it says in Corinthians, doesn't it, about don't give up meeting together, and how lovely and important it is to be in a group of church family, and just how that can encourage each other and just, we do each other good. There's something of God's Spirit that can be there amongst us. And also we've got to get through this life, haven't we? And mankind is fallible, and bad things do happen. And I think, if we're not staying close to God and close to to use the old-fashioned word, fellowship, then things can beset us, to use another old-fashioned term, and it's just it is just so real. And to have had the learning and years over the years, hearing God's word, singing those lovely hymns we were talking before the start of the meeting. Some of those old hymns, there's one very much we sang this morning, and it was stating the truths about, as it were, the story of God and about the creation and about where mankind was, and just having that deep inside so that it's there and it sort of can pop up at a time when we need it, as it were, that grounding in that respect. And we've heard this particular psalm, some people have preached on it, about how sin so easily besets us, and used David as an example, what an amazing person he was, about how he did fall into sin. We can read that for ourselves, about how he was genuine in realising his remorse, and then how he went on again, but he did have to live with consequences. And again, some of us are living with consequences of our lives before we became Christians. And then there are, some who, what life has doled out to us, or what we've found ourselves embroiled in, and so we have consequences of the struggles and the situations whilst we have been on our Christian journey. And just to be able to be honest with God in the way that David was, I think, and not to shy away from God, which is what we often do. Can do it unknowingly, really. Think of Adam and Eve in the garden. I'd have loved to have experienced or been a fly on the wall, if you like, and seen what it was like in the Garden of Eden. I love it when the pictures of gardens come up when we do our worship songs. There was one this morning, wasn't there? And the idea of this hot weather we've had, and in the cool of these evenings, isn't it lovely just to go out when it's a bit cooler and just to walk and Adam did that with God, didn't he? And they talked together, and that was wonderful. And then in Genesis 3, we read that there was that day when they heard the sound of the Lord as he was walking in the garden, and they hid from him among the trees. And God said, "Where are you? Why are you hiding?" And there was an obvious reason why, wasn't there? That if we're comfortable and content in doing something that displeases God or that we've tumbled into, it's only a matter of time before we start to feel far away from him, and all sorts of nasty negatives start coming in. But we can let the presence of God keep us right. We can. And the thought of things coming up into the light and getting resolved is something which I've been meditating on as well. And I think when David in the Psalms was saying to God, he was realising that there was a way to say it, to share it, to be able to come to God, and there wouldn't be in any way any condemnation. A couple of things came to my mind without going into the details. Many years ago, there was a little situation that we had with another family when we had young families, and myself and the lads ended up being, shall I say, not very well because of something. And we didn't cope with the situation very maturely, did we? We rather sort of put ourselves into isolation, if you like. And it was, we had very regular communications with this particular family, and we rather sort of cut ourselves off and sort of ignored. And the dad came and knocked on our door one day after about a fortnight or something. And he said, "I've come, are you all right?" And I think maybe Mike said, "Well, not really." And he said, "Well, what's happened? Is something wrong? Have we done anything to offend you?" And had a chat, and it was all so sorted out. And I felt so immature and so silly, really, so humbled. And this, friend had come and, face to face, and it was out in the open, and it was something and nothing really, but to us it was a new situation, and we got ourselves a bit uptight about it all. But it came out, it was dealt with, it was in the light. John? Bless you. Do you want to turn on? Yeah, so if there was a theme to my little time, it is nothing is hid from thee, O Lord. And Ken said that in one of the prayers last Sunday around the table. And that's what's burning with me at the moment. Nothing is hid from thee, O Lord. If I can share a couple of work examples as well, because we are human, aren't we? And we have our sort of family lives, our work or business lives, or even just how we interact with people in the community, in the shops, the things that we have to do for running our homes, and then with God. So there is that. I feel there is that sort of similarity of how we can deal with situations. And one thing at work that we always try to say is, please, if you've made a mistake, own up to it. We're not going to condemn you for it or blast you out of the thing. Please do that. And then it can be sorted. And then there's that trust, there's that honesty. The worst thing of all is for somebody to do something and then try to hide it. And that's the beginning of there not being that honest relationship. And again, there's that parallel with God, isn't there? And our relationship with him. I came across something about And again, please, take and how things are from your perspective. But this is a piece about how to own up to your mistake at work. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's crucial to handle them in a professional manner. This 5-step process will help you own your mistakes and learn from them. So in this particular one, Angela's stomach began to curl. She'd made a big mistake. She'd accidentally paid somebody twice a lot of money. She started to sweat and try out what on earth should she do. But in a matter of minutes, she'd managed to be honest with the boss about what had happened. She'd owned up to the mistake with her client, and she'd explained what happened and that as far as was possible it wouldn't happen again. So it was keeping it in perspective. Everyone makes mistakes. Come to terms with it. Then you're in a better position to fix the problem. The hardest of all, own up to it. Take responsibility. Explain what happened. Don't overdo it. Don't go on and on and on, saying sorry 500 times. And don't make excuses. Don't try to over-explain it. And then come up with an action plan as well. Learn from your mistake. Have an honest opinion with your manager. Ask for help. And together work out how to go forward and try and avoid it. And I personally can see some parallels there with our Christian lives, our day-to-day lives too, about taking that step and owning up to it. But then, saying with God, how can I avoid that? If that's one of my pitfalls, if that's one of my weaknesses, help me. Help me to avoid what I maybe need to avoid so I don't fall into it. And help give me the tools to deal with it. And I say certainly for me, having those songs, those words, those scriptures deep down to come up, I think is a good place. I had another situation last July. Somebody new came along. Came in a bit like a bull at a china shop and hadn't been introduced very well. And it isn't particularly my nature, but I felt really, really hurt by something that they'd done. And I sort of, something told me now, this is a prime example. Act maturely and do what's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do is to go and tell somebody else. And then, the situation did get resolved. And we now have a very good working relationship. We understand each other. We know how we each do react in a stressful situation. And it's not easy necessarily being a manager or a leader, is it? But I've found this person has shared personal things with me, and she said the other day, "Oh, nobody else here knows that." And to me, that was lovely. And I thought, gosh, I could have continued to have had, niggles and gripes, as it were, inside. But get things out in that's the next slide. Yeah, light and dark. And there's many ways that our thoughts can go in this, can't they? About what goes on or what we can do in secret in the dark, but just switching that light on and staying in the position of light, getting ourselves back into the light, and being light to each other. If you meet someone who you've perhaps known when you were younger for many years, or a close member of the family, even if you've not seen them for a while, and something Mike said in one of the prayers earlier today, you have that bond, that connection, because of something of where they've been, and they know something of where you've been, and it's not lovely to come like that with God. Remember when I was little, I didn't have to say anything. I just walked into a room and the mum would know something was wrong. You know, she'd say, "What's the matter?" She just knew, and God knows with us, doesn't he? Straight away, he knows if something's the matter. Maybe sometimes you get back home from school and you've been big and brave, and then you just walk through the door and you burst into tears. I'm the only one that's ever done that, and that was because you were back home, weren't you, with your mum or with your dad, and it just sort of all came out, didn't it? And it's to have that with God. Right. This is what somebody said about this psalm. It offers us an outsized measure of hope and comfort in the face of adversity and trial. Human experience is vast and varied, but one thing that is universal is suffering. It was mentioned earlier today, wasn't it, about the suffering humanity. Pains and problems. It varies from person to person, but we do all suffer, and we are troubled by the sufferings of others and the sufferings and injustice in the world. And it can lead us to that question that can be thrown at us about why does God allow suffering? But given this constant part of life, the wise person aims to understand heartaches and how to react when suffering comes. Yeah. So this is what someone has written down. The first truth about suffering is a recognition that it is alien to God's plan of life. It wasn't there in the Garden of Eden, was it? Might sound incredible, but to the Christian worldview, it is vital. Just hold on to that. Suffering is a product of the fall, a consequence of human sin against God. Now, some New Testament scriptures where Paul was sharing with it. Suffering is in our lives, well, because we are living in a broken world, and yes, sometimes we have brought some of it upon ourselves, but sometimes it's just due to the world that we live in. And the suggestion here is that this should drive us to long for a better world, a world redeemed and free from sin, and a world that God will one day come again to establish. And yes, that's lovely, isn't it? We saw one of our sons and daughters-in-law yesterday, and talking about things being a two-way thing as well, to receive and to be willing to receive from others as well as to give. And I think that's lovely, isn't it? As we get older, in that respect, we looked at garden forks because ours is a bit heavy, isn't it? I could be cruel and say it's because we're getting older, we need something. But it was always heavy, wasn't it? In that respect. But Mike asked our daughter-in-law that there were two who were somewhat similar, and we were looking at how high they were and how heavy they were, and so Mike brought his daughter-in-law into the conversation and said, what do you think? And she didn't jump in and say, well, I think this is the best one for you, but she was very observant, she was a very, very observant lady, and she said, well, actually, if you look at them, this one's slightly different design, it's just a bit more sprayed out, and so it'll just cover that little bit more area, and depends what you want. Do you want that, or do you want one that's lighter? So we made the choice. So I'm thinking now about that Garden of Eden, and being able to be in our garden and having that time with God. I wonder when David wrote the Psalms, how many of them he was up in the hills, how many he was with the sheep, how many he was in God's creation, in a place that helped him. The Psalms about, looking into, put my eyes to the hills, wasn't there? It's something, and that's where I think we should go If you just go back again to the psalm, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? You know when I sit and where I rise, you know when I'm going out and I'm lying down. He knows when we can all pick our own sort of interpretations from this. He knows when we're going out, when we're busy, when we get over busy. He knows when we're lying down, when we're having a rest. Or maybe we're lying down because we just feel like giving up for today. But he knows, doesn't he? He's familiar with all my ways. Before we've even said what we should or shouldn't have said, he knows about it. You hem me in and behind me. And again, there's positives and negatives of all these, isn't there? Oh gosh, I can't run away from you at all. But on the other side, there's you're there, you're protecting me. I'll always be within your protection. I'll never let you out of my grasp. Yeah. Where can I go again? I see the two sides of that depending on where we are. God, things will come out that shouldn't have happened because we can't flee from him. And on the other hand, when things are bad, it can never be too bad, but what he will be there. It talks about how we're made again. So if we're suffering with our bodies in particular ways, he knows how we're made. He knows how we're made. And this one's interesting. If only you would slay the wicked. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord? Abhor those. Is getting himself a bit wound up. Rather my interpretation of this one again. I have nothing but hatred against them. And then he stops himself. Is it righteous anger or is it human anger? And suddenly he's back on track again to say, search me, God. Know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Perhaps some of it is coming out of anxiety. And at the end, see if there is anything offensive. Lead me in the way everlasting. And that's just what I want to lead. Lead me in the way everlasting, please, O Lord. And we have a final song to use as a prayer in which to say that to the Lord. Please, Lord, lead us in the way everlasting.